Welcome, 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 everyone, to another episode of the Option Menu Crew podcast. This is episode 20, and with you today, your hosts for today's episode are me, Ryan, and we've got Ed. How you doing?
Great, great.
And we've got Mike.
I'm good. How's everyone?
Great, great. So, after we did our monetization episode last time, we decided to do some fun episodes. And so for this episode, with episode 20, we are gonna do what we call the game Genie, and that is also an old school video game reference for our younger listeners that may not be aware. Back when, if you may be familiar with the terms Action Replay or Game Shark for all the old stuff, but those were the names of cheat code devices. And way back when in the Nintendo, I don't remember if the Nintendo actually had it, but definitely Sega Genesis and I think Super Nintendo had this device, like one of the first cheating devices, where you could plug the cartridge into it and plug in codes to alter the game stuff and give yourself like infinite lives or infinite health or get debug menus, etc. And it was called the game Genie. So I took the name a little bit more literally and I tossed around with the guys, and we decided we would do an episode where we have a hypothetical game Genie that we've summoned. And for fun, each of us will get 3 wishes from that game Genie. And then at the end of the episode, we're going to see if we could come up with a consensus on like what 3 wishes, if it was just if we have to, only choose 3 between the 3 of us to wish for. And possibly a 4th wish that would have a monkey's paw style catch to it. But we'll figure that out. But in preparation for this, we decided to come up with some rules because there are certain obvious things we could have wished for that would just kind of take all the fun out of it, because you could be like, there's the creativity, because you're like, obviously you would go for these types of wishes. So the rules we agreed upon in our sets of wishes, of things you cannot wish for. And as those who are familiar with other regular genies, there are typical wishes, and we kind of mimic those. So our rules were, you can't wish for more wishes or like have a wish that involves some sort of do-over if things go wrong. Just can't do that. You can't wish to make all games and DLC and things like that free or whatnot. That's just unfair. It's too easy. And then also, just to kind of be civil and nice with people, this is very similar to also regular Genie wishes. You can't wish for someone who's a real person to die. That's just not kosher. You can wish for game characters to die or disappear. And you could certainly wish for other things to happen to someone. So say you wanted like a developer to just not be in the game industry anymore, you want like a certain executive to no longer have decision-making power, like you can wish for them to get fired, that's fine, but you can't be like, I wish for them to be killed or something like that, or to die. No, you can't. It's too dark, it's too cruel. You can't do that. So nothing like that, nothing cruel or torturous like that. Keep it kosher, keep it fun. But that's what we're gonna do today. And so first up, it's gonna be Ed. And no one has any specific, there was no specific rules on how you had to base your 3 wishes, but it had to be something related to video games. Like they have to be video game related wishes, and we've kind of let that be fun. And it can be either stuff with the game industry, you could wish for your favorite games, you could wish for, even Mike had some crazy ideas of like how he would change reality based on video games, and I said that's cool as well, as long as it's within the rules. So that's the thing, and everyone can kind of explain what their thinking was behind choosing their 3 wishes and whatnot there. And you can change your mind and whatnot as we go forward through that. So Ed, go ahead and start us off and tell us about your 3 wishes.
Rub that lamp.
So my first thought when I found out that I had 3 wishes to make, I really thought I really only need 1. So for me, being a pretty big Metroid fan, the game I'd most like to see period, is Metroid 5. And I don't mean another Metroid Prime game. I don't mean another offshoot like Other M. I mean the fifth mainline 2D Metroid, because I really prefer that style of Metroid game. And I liked Fusion. That was actually the first Metroid game I played, and it remains one of my favorites. And I want to know what happens after that. So I don't know. I don't think either of you have played Metroid Fusion, have you?
I want to say I tried it a little bit.
On the Game Boy Advance?
Wasn't it one of the 3DS Ambassador games?
Yeah,
It was.
I
Mhm.
think I downloaded it and like booted it up for like a second. But maybe I'm just
Yeah,
also
same.
thinking of YouTube videos.
Same with me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you mind if I spoil the ending?
Go right ahead. It's been spoiled for me already.
Okay. Well, it ends that Samus and the computer on the space station she is exploring decide that they have to destroy the space station and send it hurling into the planet below to destroy the X parasite, because the Federation wants to collect it and weaponize it, which, the Galactic Federation, in pretty much every game, it seems like they're not a good organization. So
Yeah.
that really begs the question of, after this happens and Samus flies away in her gunship, she's not going to be in very good standing with the Galactic Federation. So is she going to be their next target? I mean, I'd really like to see what Nintendo would choose to do with that storyline. But maybe that's the reason they haven't done it, because I don't know if they want to make Samus a villain, or an outcast, or what's the
I thought Samus was already basically an outcast. Like other
not outcast. What's the, I'm listening, the word for when you're like on the run from the
an outlaw or yeah, an outlaw.
fugitive, a fugitive. That's
you
the
go.
one. I don't know if they wanted to be like a fugitive from the Galactic Federation. I feel like that's what she would have to be, because they had got to be pretty mad that she did all this.
Mhm.
So that's what I'd like to see. And I liked what they did with Samus Returns. I liked how they added, I don't know, probably didn't play that either, but they added a little bit more of a melee reaction command to it that I enjoyed. And I liked that they had some other power ups like the spider ball. So and I feel like they've done a good job with each of the 2D Metroids and the remakes, but I'm worried that if they do make another 2D Metroid, it's either going to be a remake of Super or a Fusion, which I don't think either of those are necessary. Um, it seems like they kind of painted themselves into a corner with the storyline, but in an ideal world, I think they could write themselves out of it, but I don't know.
Well,
Um,
let's just to clarify, Metroid Samus Returns is the 3DS remake of Metroid 2 Return of Samus that originally released on Game Boy. That's correct? That's what you were
yes.
talking about?
Yeah, what I mean when I mention that is that I liked the new mechanics that they added, and I think that they could be able to come up with other new mechanics in a two-man Metroid. Like, you would have thought that, there's not so much you can do to expand upon the gameplay, but they added a combat mechanic in that, where enemies would attack you and they would kind of telegraph the attack, and if you press
Yeah.
the counter button, you could stun them for extra damage. So I just use that as an example of an innovation that they've done with the 2D Metroids, that it's definitely possible for them to do more cool stuff in that style of Metroid game.
Sure,
I
sure.
I think the real challenge is the story. So.
Yeah, sure. And that's Other M kind of experimented with like a reaction command system that seems like they carried over into that. So that's really cool, actually. But since this is like your wish, and if you're really committing to that like that, you could use your other two wishes to make sure that game is exactly how you want it. So I was gonna follow up and ask you, Ed, what's your vision for Metroid 5? You can use your wishes to make that happen. You know?
Now, I'm not a video game story writer, so I think my ideas might be a little vague, but I really would like to see them to explore the angle where Samus is not aligned with the Galactic Federation, because both in Other M, she was pretty much working with them, but there were some things that went wrong. And in Fusion, it was kind of hinted at the beginning that she was on this mission, but maybe didn't quite agree with everything, and she didn't necessarily like in either of those. She didn't. It wasn't like her modus operandi to be like working underneath a commander or any other organization, but she chose to. So you kind of get the idea that she is a renegade, and it it would be interesting to see what they could do with that and taking it to its extreme. The other thing I would like out of another Metroid game is Fusion has some moments that kind of veer almost into like horror, because you do have the antagonist in that is the X Parasite version of Samus, that is this duplicate of her that has all her former powers and is really powerful, and you run into these segments where you have to run away, and there's these chase sequences. Like, it's very tense. I mean, I played it as like 10 or 11 years old, and it was pretty intense for a kid of that age. And I would like to see them push it even farther and make it more of a frightening game. I mean, every Metroid game has some moments in it that are pretty shocking in some ways. I mean, like, I when I remember playing Metroid Prime, you have some enemies there that are just, the music starts playing and it gets your heart pumping, because it's going to be a pretty scary fight. So
You mean Metroid Other M wasn't rated M?
It was not. That was not the other M.
No. No, I don't know. Maybe it would have been better if they took it a little farther.
Maybe.
But I would like to see Samus as kind of a renegade from the whatever government exists in the galaxy. They don't always like expand on it that much,
Right.
but and to take it in more of a horror direction, like make it maybe like in Zero Mission at the end, where you're having to hide from space pirates. Maybe you're having to hide from people from the Federation. But I also, I don't know if Nintendo would go that direction, because that would kind of mean that Samus's enemies are humans, and that gets into a little bit more mature territory than when you're just fighting aliens. For whatever reason, it's seen as more family friendly to kill aliens than it is to kill other humans.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a different type of thing because it's more fictional. You're kind of selling me on the idea of like a Resident Evil style Metroid game where it's like third person over the shoulder, and Samus is like stranded on some alien planet with all these horrific creatures, and you're kind of just creeping around trying to collect supplies to escape. I would love to see something like that. But just to clarify for you, Ed, with this being your wish, you would want it to be 2D, right?
Yeah, I would want it to be 2D, but I could be open to a 3D run, but I wouldn't want it to be first person, because I have played some of the Prime games. I don't love them. Definitely going to play Prime 4, and if they come out with a trilogy for Switch, I'll probably buy that and play those.
Mm-hmm.
But I prefer third person and 2D camera styles for most games, really. Over the shoulder sounds good. Returnal has kind of like a space monster thing going to it. Maybe they need to take some cues from the design of that. I wouldn't want it to be a roguelike, but that one definitely has some pretty horrifying monsters looking and the cool space aesthetic. So
Yeah. Now, like I said, the you have wishes here. So like if you're only using the one just to wish for Metroid Prime 5, you can still use the other two to demand what it be. So if you want it to be like it has to be 2D, like you can do that. That could be your second wish. But I am curious, since we are just exploring that there, would you want to use your wish to be like it has to be 2D sprite art, like really high quality sprite art? Would you want it to mimic like Super Nintendo or like Game Boy, or would you be cool with like what they did with Samus Returns, where it was 2D perspective but with 3D graphics?
well,
What style would you want?
I'm not going to use my two other wishes on Metroid 5.
Oh, sure,
But
sure.
if I had to pick a graphical style, I could see it being maybe it doesn't have to be real blocky. Like I've played a couple other I know there's other popular Metroidvanias. I kind of like the graphical style of Hollow Knight. It's kind of dark and
Okay.
it's got I haven't played really that at all, but I've seen I like the graphical style of that. I like that it's kind of this drawn look to it.
Yep.
So I think that could work really well. I don't know if I would want it to be more pixel art. I played a lot of Axiom Verge, and as much as I like the pixel art in that, like I think it would be better if it used the more modern graphical style. I did like the 2.5D graphics that Samus Return has, but they really, if they do end up porting it to Switch, it'll look a lot better just because it was really limited by the resolution of that system. 3DS just has very low res screens that hurt its ability to deliver quality graphics.
Absolutely. Maybe consider trying to emulate that on your computer or something like that. You got the new Mac, so maybe you could get that running
Yeah,
in
maybe I'll give it a
1080p
shot. Yeah.
and see how it truly looks. Yeah, and like to your point, I played a little bit of Axiom Verge. I rented it to give it a shot, and it was going for much more lo-fi. Like it was NES, but like fantasy NES graphics, I guess I'd say, because it was probably capable of doing a little bit more than like pure NES hardware was able to do. So okay, that's interesting. But yeah, what are you thinking about for your other two wishes?
So I think I'm gonna go in order of likeliness, and I'm gonna save my most far-fetched wish for the last one. So number 2 is gonna be, I would like to see just full backwards compatibility for every system and just have all games be released digitally. And for me, what that would mean is for PlayStation 5, you have the ability to play everything back to the PlayStation 1
Mm-hmm.
and probably also PSP and Vita, since there's no reason those couldn't be also played on a home system. And that I would have the ability to purchase games from that back catalog. Um, Xbox already does part of what I would want. Like I
Most of it,
like
yes.
that. Yeah, most of the modable games. So Xbox kind of already does that. But there are like blind spots that people like. One game I haven't played, but if I could play it backwards compatible on the current gen Xbox, I would. Is I'd be interested in playing Jet Set Radio Future,
Mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
that one just some games will never, in a real world, they'll just never make it forward because of music licensing or other licensing concerns that would have to be renegotiated to allow that to happen.
Yep.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's probably the biggest reason why these things couldn't happen. It's not technical. It's always just comes down to money. I mean,
Yep.
which is a shame, but and I just that example. I don't think is there a very good Xbox emulator out right now? I don't think. I was hearing recently that that they have made some strides, but there isn't really a good way to play Xbox games other than original Xbox.
Not that I've heard of. I'd imagine that if the 360 was properly emulated, that carries a lot of backwards compatibility, I think, or even if they figured out how to backwards compatible the
Yeah.
Xbox One, that would a lot of that stuff might end up being figured out. But I could see that being a thing Microsoft just works on going forward, especially for expanding Game Pass, where they're just going to be like, hey, we're getting the licensing and we're just going to port a bunch of those 360, and a lot of 360 games already have PC versions anyways, but getting a bunch of those older deals and getting that backwards compatibility just on Game Pass for PC. Like I could see that happening in the future as well. So that'd be cool. But I like your ideas and what you're thinking there. So it lines up with my segment when we get to that in a few ways. So okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I'd like to see it for PlayStation because there's a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
there
and
are
Nintendo.
there are, yeah, Nintendo I would love, but they would have to like sell controllers for which they'd probably love to do that. They'd probably love to sell you 20 controllers for their one system. You could buy your Wii controller for the Switch. You could buy your GameCube and your N64 controller. They already sell NES and Super Nintendo controllers, so
But they
what's to
don't.
stop?
But you don't need those classic. That's more for nostalgia purposes rather than function.
I might want to play them that way, but maybe not. It depends. I guess the only one I feel like you would really want another controller for is the Wii, because I well I
The
get
the the motion controls
yeah.
in the Switch, the Joy-Cons are pretty much better. The only thing that would be more accurate with the Wii is if you set up the sensor bar, because the pointer there with that would be more reliable. It doesn't have to worry about the gyroscope like realigning for that stuff. But the gyroscope means you don't need like the sensor bar. You don't need that extra hardware.
So really, you just need a Joy-Con that can use a sensor. That's really about it.
If they did something like that, you could do it.
Yeah.
But you don't need the sensor bar with the way gyroscopes are advanced at this point. But even if they put some of that tracking stuff inside of TVs at some point, just to modify the remotes for pointer tech, like then that would make it even easier. But I get where you're going with that.
Yeah, so I mean,
But these are
Nintendo,
wishes, so remember,
yeah,
you don't have to
Nintendo
play
could
the
do
what
this.
if. Like, no, I
Well,
demand this.
yeah, I'm just trying to think of like how logically it could happen. I mean, Sony could totally do this if they wanted to, and I think Nintendo could probably do it too. They did it with the GameCube and then 64 on the Super Mario 3D All Stars collection. So they're just emulating those.
Oh yeah, and I was when I was thinking about that kind of stuff for the wishes, I was like, okay, I'm gonna avoid wishing for anything that's logically going to happen because it's just like kind of inevitable.
I don't think those necessarily are going.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So what I was leading to is then Ed, like that's why with these wishes you can just say this, I want this to happen and I want it to happen this way. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking in my mind, like, could this actually happen? I think
yeah.
Metroid 5 and this could actually happen. But as we get into our next wish, it's not a possibility. So maybe I should segue into that now.
Sorry, and a Mike from Option Menu Crew. Mike, what were you trying to say?
Oh, no, nothing. It's good.
I heard you a little bit. I know you were inserting a joke there. But yeah.
No,
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm digging all that there, Ed. Was there anything else that was bouncing around your head before you decided on your three, or is that pretty much it?
I think I thought this one is less of a wish. This is not my wish, because it would be less of a wish for me and more for gaming in general. It's just maybe to ban all microtransactions. And this I didn't put on my list just because I don't really play a lot of games that seem to be affected by that, but maybe that's a case where I should be concerned because they might ultimately affect everything.
Can you clarify what you mean by microtransactions, just to make explicit for the Genie?
Stuff like loot boxes, stuff like buying skins, buying weapon, like anything that if it were PS2 gen and earlier would have just been unlockable in a game. I don't mean DLC. I don't mean like an expansion. I mean like features or content that were clearly just developed as an extra thing to sell when it traditionally it would have been something you could have unlocked. So I mean stuff like I would say stuff like $5 and less, but some of these Fortnite skins, what do they run, like $20? Like you can't even put a minimum dollar amount because they'll just make it more expensive and people will pay that.
Yeah, and then there's also like if I'm not sure if League of Legends is like this, but from Dota, from playing that on Steam, like their marketplace for skins and effects and stuff, that's also like there's cosmetics that are worth hundreds if not thousands of dollars because they're rare and only so many people actually own them and they can only be traded from now on, or some even can't even be traded. But that makes them priceless, I guess, if they can't be traded. But yeah, so I know what you're saying. I just wanted to make sure we're making it clear for the Genie and our listeners what we meant by that, so they're not raging at us like, what do you mean you don't want that? Like, we don't want them to be charged for it. And I agree with you, and we've discussed that on the previous episode.
Yeah, so that one's more of that one wasn't my wish, just because I don't usually play those kind of competitive games that lend themselves to those type of microtransactions. Although Ubisoft has shown us that you can put those kind of things in single player games too, but I don't play Ubisoft games, so
yeah, and mobile games. Mobile games do the same thing.
I don't play many mobile games either, so. Yeah. But maybe I should be worried. I'm sure they'll try to find ways to charge me for content and the kind of games that I do play. So
yeah. Okay.
But my real final wish is I would like to see Iwata back alive and in charge of Nintendo, because I really feel like his era of leadership just
Yeah.
it brought something special to the company. And not to say that Nintendo isn't putting out good stuff now, but I feel like as a company they just don't have the same magic. I mean, the new president,
Yeah.
what is his name? It's Furukawa, isn't it?
I don't know who the new current
It
president
is, but
Japanese.
I don't know how to pronounce it exactly.
Yeah, I mean
I'll look him
that's the
up.
thing. Clearly he can't be that memorable because we don't even know who he is. Everyone. I mean, that just
Oh, you
is
cut off for a
proof in
second.
and of-
Please repeat that.
Clearly he can't be that memorable because we don't even know who the new president is, and we see him in every direct.
What's that?
President Business.
Trying to look up the
Yeah.
picture of him. Okay, because it's Shuntaro Furukawa.
Yeah, Furukawa.
And wait. Oh yeah, that's right. Because I was trying to make sure I was picturing right guy. No, he's I don't think Furukawa's been on camera. I don't think that's him. I'd have to double check.
Yeah, I don't think he's been on.
Oh, has he
camera
not?
either.
No,
No, maybe not.
they've been choosing other people to represent.
I don't think he's that kind of president.
Yeah, unfortunately not.
Yeah,
He's
I
a
mean, I
younger
guess-
guy. But it's
49 years.
yeah. Yeah, by comparison, he's younger. So,
But Iwata wasn't that old.
no, I think Iwata was only like 52 or something when he passed away.
He was like, I thought he was in his 60s, but
I will double check. We'll see that there. President Iwata.
no, maybe not.
He
I guess he was mid 50s. Yeah, no, I was wrong.
died in 2015, in July 2015. He was born 1959.
Yeah, so about 55.
Yeah, very, very, very tragic.
Yeah, too young. But I would like to see him back in charge of Nintendo.
56.
Yeah. And maybe as an addendum to that is maybe he can even bring back Reggie. I mean, Reggie is still
Ooh. Forcing Reggie to come back. I keep trying to get out and they keep dragging me back in. It would be nice.
I think Iwata's last idea was the Switch, right? That was his last thing before
He was definitely in the
right?
concepting phase of that, so it's hard to tell how much of Switch decisions were there. It would have been great to know more about that. Also, but however, he might have been, if the rumors are true, he might have gotten the Switch to have two eyes in it, and then we would have had the Switch. And I don't know if maybe it would be worth it, maybe, but the Switch.
No, I would have thought he would have been in the planning of that.
Oh, he was.
originally.
We'll never truly know what decisions he was making about it, unless someone does like a good tell-all. But that's
that's
It's
not going to
not gonna
happen for
happen.
Nintendo.
probably not. Probably not. Not at least for decades.
They're gonna tell everyone to Jason Schreier for book.
Oh,
Please understand.
That'd be the title of the book. Please understand the Nintendo story. I would love it. Chapter 1, your body is not ready. Or that would be the prologue. Okay then.
And then the final chapter is, and one more thing.
And one more thing. Yes. Oh, that'd be great. That'd be the good epilogue chapter. Okay. So Ed, those were your wishes there.
Yeah.
Was there anything you needed to quickly correct yourself on before we move on to Mike?
No, I just got to calm myself down because that was funny. Mike, that was good. Please understand.
Okay. Well, then we're moving on to Mike. So please tell us what are your three wishes, and what did you think about when trying to figure them out?
Okay, so yeah, I thought of some wishes here. So for the first wish, originally I had something different, but I was thinking about it more a little bit today.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, how about like a Star Wars lightsaber platform fighting game with all the characters from like every trilogy, and maybe like even some people from like expanded universe and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it could also have like a VR version as well. But like, I mean, the regular game wouldn't be VR, but you could also like there would be like, I don't know,
VR
expansion
mode.
or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, a VR mode or something.
You
So
mean
I
like
think-
you mean a platform fighter like Super Smash,
Yeah,
Super Force?
I don't know what it would be called exactly.
Super Force Fighters.
Yeah, I think that would be really fun, like multiplayer type game that people would be really excited about.
Do you have an idea of like who you'd want to develop it?
Maybe Capcom.
Ooh, okay.
Or,
Okay.
or or didn't Namco Bandai help with Super Smash?
Bandai Namco is partnered with Nintendo for the development of both Smash Wii U and probably Smash 3DS and Smash Ultimate. Yeah.
So maybe them actually.
Okay.
Unless it was more of a like if it was like less of a platforming one, then maybe Capcom. But if it was more of like a platforming one, then maybe Bandai Namco, since they already have experience doing that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay.
So for my second one, it's not really like that really pie in the sky type of wish. It's just like it could possibly happen maybe someday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping for my wish is that Spyro will be in Super Smash.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So instead of like Crash or something, like I'm hoping for Spyro.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. All right.
And for the third wish, I'm going to wish that the Switch is the most powerful system, more powerful than the PS5 and Xbox Series X. The next Switch is going to be the all powerful.
Ooh.
More than, but still mobile, still a hybrid.
Yeah, still a hybrid, but just more powerful than the other two systems. I don't really know how this would actually be achieved, but
Yeah, man.
It would just be like $1,500, like the MacBook Pro.
And the battery would only
it-
last for like 30 minutes per charge.
I mean,
Although I don't know, because like the Switch is kind of loosely based off of the Nvidia Shield, and I forget, and that was a decent sized PC, and that was even bigger than the Switch because it was like a tablet with controller stuff, like a bigger tablet than what the Switch is technically the main base part. So I don't know what the battery life was on that, but I think it was kind of equivalent, but it was like iPad size. It was near iPad size. So if you're doing a battery that big, then it's possible you could get there. But yeah, how big would you be willing to tolerate that Switch being there in terms of like screen size and stuff? Because I don't know, Mike, if you have enough reference about like the iPad or Android tablet sizes.
um, well, maybe like it could just be as powerful, like plugged into like a special dock or something.
Yeah, and that's a thing where like handheld mode doesn't actually need to be outputting nearly as strong. Like I was even talking with some other friends, and they were saying like 720p is fine for the handheld mode because if you have good pixel density on the screen, it looks really good, and then running at 720 is way less taxing on the processor, so you could run smoother, maintain a good frame rate, plus use up less battery and all that stuff. So yeah,
I
that's
think we could have like an 8-inch screen, maybe like I don't know how big if we remove like the bezels and stuff
Mhm.
without making it huge.
Yeah, actually thinking about that because I've always thought like the Switch could also be a little thicker, so it could fit better gear, better batteries, better tech. Also maybe
better
even be
cooling. Better
exactly.
cooling.
Yeah, some better cooling, and also then it would be a little more ergonomic. I feel because you'd make the Joy-Cons an equivalent thickness, so for people with slightly bigger hands, and I don't think that would compromise it too much on for different hand sizes with that. And obviously there's already tons of accessories for improving the ergonomics of Joy-Cons and handheld mode, or if not, just the the Pro controllers. I've got my ruler out and I'm measuring my Switch. And actually,
Okay.
because if the rumors are true and it's going to be a 7-inch screen, right now the base size of what it is, like past the bezel, there's just a little bit more than 7 inches from
Interesting.
edge to edge, like counting the bezel there. So most likely, the Switch might end up staying roughly the same size, and they are literally just putting in a new screen because it's about from edge to edge, it's pretty much 7.25. So the bezel's just gonna get shrunk on the new Switch if the rumors are true. So they don't really have to change up the size and whatnot. But yeah,
They should just make a Superboy size. For the
No.
what's Superboy size?
It's you tell him, Mike.
So there was like one of those, those like emulation, those consoles that are like they can play like old retro games.
Oh, I gotta
So
Google
the
that.
Superboy was a portable handheld that could play SNES cartridges. And I think it only has like about a 5-inch screen or something.
Oh, yeah.
And the battery life was not very good. I mostly played with it like plugged into the wall, but you could also hook it to your TV and stuff too. So it was
I have seen this before.
But
yeah,
it is chunky. It is chunky.
But it was the Switch before the Switch because you could actually hook it to your TV and do portable.
Yeah, they should sue Nintendo. It's their idea. Yeah.
Yeah, but 5-inch screen would be too small. Like for Super Nintendo games, that'd be perfect.
Oh yeah.
But for like Switch and modern style, you want the 16:9, and you want like 7 inches is gonna look really good when that if that's the new Switch comes out. Yeah, but that size there, I think, because that's definitely thicker than what the Switch is right now. I wouldn't mind that being chunky, especially if it's like spread out a little bit more. Like for the trade-off for getting powers, because think also thicker Joy-Cons, better batteries. Not that the Joy-Cons die easily when it comes to battery life. Battery life is not the Joy-Con problem. It's those darn joysticks, and we all know it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that'd be cool. Or, I guess, well, if they had thicker Joy-Cons, maybe they could do it where they could inset the joysticks a little bit more, so that way they could have longer full-size sticks, but they're inset, so they're still not protruding out too much from the thing. But I don't know, maybe that would create the same issue there, because people like the longer full-size joysticks compared to the Switch. Although I think they're fine. I think people get a little too picky with that stuff. But then again, I'm not like a competitive shooter guy, so maybe that's maybe I'm the one who's off base on that. But yeah, okay.
Yeah,
No,
that
I'm
would
with
be
you.
pretty crazy if Nintendo did something like that for sure.
But would you make sure?
How much would you pay? How much would you pay to get that level of power in a handheld form? And maybe not in handheld, but with the handheld plus the dock that gives you this power when you
for
dock
your
it.
idea. What's that worth to you?
$500, $600.
Really? Okay, you'd pay. All right.
I think if it were strong enough to compete with, I kind of agree with you on that. 600 is fair if it's got the handheld plus it.
At least the initial price. I don't know about like future, like it would go down.
It's not going to go down with Nintendo the way this.
No.
Maybe this one would, but yeah, that seems fair to me. I agree with you on that.
I don't remember if I said this on
the Switch.
I don't remember if I said this on one of the previous episodes, but I'll just quickly reiterate it here. I was thinking that because with the PlayStation 5 coming and because the Switch's success, that Sony might try to kind of copy it, and they would basically make their own Switch, but it would be they take the PS4 specs, like maybe somewhere between the base and the Pro, and they'd make their own PlayStation portable new gen, and that would be they could like have down-resed versions of PS5 plus PS4 games and sell that portable, and that'd be like their new option between that, and then you could easily like exchange games or whatnot, and they'd try to copy Nintendo, but clearly that's that's not where they're going right now. They're very happy with just
Yeah, I had heard
TV
rumors
dominating
about that, too.
dominating the home market.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were no rumors. I was just going off of my own personal speculation.
I
could
thought I
see.
read some rumors about that. Like,
I
There may
think
be
I
some
saw
out
rumors
there.
too that they were going to make like a 5G version of the PSP. I think there were rumors.
Yeah, I could see that, and maybe there was some weird patents, because patents get out there, and they have to put that stuff out for ideas just to hold them, just to kind of bookmark them in case they ever decide to do anything with it. But who knows? Maybe they'll get back in after seeing how well Switch is doing and with the hybrid model, and maybe they will come out with like a PS5 Go, and then it will just be able to run at 1080p, and it'll be like a lower spec, and then you can just take the games on the go, but you'll buy a separate piece of hardware for it. I mean, they're doing the PlayStation VR too, so who knows? They might revisit those ideas.
The Vita Switch.
Vita Switch. Switch your life. Switch your life up. Vita means life. Okay, those were some great wishes, Mike. Was there any other wishes that you were thinking about but didn't quite make the cut, or?
Yeah, I was thinking about like wanting a Battlefront 3, but I want it to be like I want it to play like the original games.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do you mean the ones like on the PS2? Like the original original?
Yeah, the original ones on the PS2. I wanted it to be like that. But then I figured it like I mean it's very possible that they're making a Battlefront 3, and also I wanted something a little bit more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I went with the Star Wars lightsaber fighting game.
That'd be really cool. By chance, did you play? I think it was like the Star Wars Force Unleashed or something, or one of those like Wii ports that did have like a fighting game in there with a bunch of lightsaber characters. I'll have to look it back up. But do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I had Force Unleashed for the 360, so I didn't play it on Wii, but there was also another like Clone Wars lightsaber fighting game on the Wii, but it wasn't very good.
Yeah.
So I didn't really. I think I had it, but I don't remember like playing a lot of it.
Okay. Yeah. We could definitely use something like that would be pretty fun with lightsabers or the and smugglers and lasers and Boba Fett and all that stuff. I could see that. There was what is it? It's like Jedi Academy or something. It got re-released on PC recently, or Jedi Academy 2 that has like a free-for-all battle mode too.
On Switch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that one. So that kind of does exist. It's not quite like a fighting game, but it is like action multiplayer, and I think it supports like at least like 8, if not 16 players for multiplayer mode.
Yeah, but I don't think it had. I don't think it had a lot of the original characters. A lot of them were like expanded universe type characters.
Okay. Yeah, no, all those ideas are cool. Did you have any other scratched wishes or backup wishes?
No, I don't have any other right now. Yeah.
Okay. All right then. Then it's my turn. So same thing. I went and I thought about it a lot, and there was a lot of easy wishes you could have made, because just like you guys, like you were doing, Mike, like there were specific games, and basically that means I'd have an endless list of wishes I could have made to pick through. So I approached it from, if I was going to use my 3 wishes, I would try to make gaming as good as improve gaming as much as I could as a whole, and Ed kind of alluded to some of those ideas in his sets of wishes that he was talking about, and so we were very closely aligned in some of that. So I had pitched my 3 to you guys when we were originally just concepting and going over our agenda here to make sure we were on the same page. But then as I thought about it more, I came up with a bunch of what I think are really good ideas, and so I've presented this list here, and it ended up being 11. I had just 10. And my original 3 are mixed in here, but this is in no particular order. But these were the 11 really top priority wishes that I kind of came up with that would have made, that I think would help make gaming better in general.
Wait, these are ones that didn't make the cut?
No, I'm just going to go through the whole list, and then I will state like out of the three here, because I'm kind of presenting it, and you guys can give me some feedback and be like, which one do you think might actually be the most important? You guys can help me decide on these three. And this is not our collaborative list. This is, I'm just kind of putting it out there, and we can talk about that, because Ed already brought up some of them, so it's going to sound like a repeat. But I'll start from the top. This is not priority. This is just my list. 11. So first one, mandatory 60 FPS in all games. So I'd even have it like, if I'd put that in, like, games going forward, they would develop with a baseline of 60 FPS, and things would be optimized for at least that going forward. And then old games, as they got like remade or updated and repatched and whatnot, they would be made to run smoothly at 60 FPS. Now that's not counting, like, if a game wants to animate in a way that looks like it's kind of sub 60, that's fine. You could do that, but you can have games run at 60 while still looking stylized to run sub that. Like, that's a style thing that people can achieve. There's fighting games and stuff like that where the way they play with the frames of animation, where that's totally capable within actually running at 60 FPS. It's just animation. So just clarifying that. Next, Nintendo goes third party. So by that I do mean, I guess they could still make their own hardware because they could do their own things, but I guess I would have them stop producing like a console, and instead they would make games for PC. They put their games out on Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and then for those more creative games like Wii Sports or Ring Fit Adventure, they would just then do like they did. They'd sell the game with whatever their like accessory was, and then it would just come with the firmware, and they'd get the licensing to be able to do that. So like they'd put out the Ring Fit controller in the big box, and it'd be like $80 or whatever it was, and you'd buy your Xbox version, and it would work on the Xbox, or it would work on the PlayStation, or work on the PC, etc. So I wouldn't stop them from doing all that crazy stuff. They just have to do it like the failed U-Draw tablet that Ubisoft put out right at the end of the Wii U era, the Wii era, and it tanked super hard.
I had that.
Yeah. So that's
You should have brought 1,000 copies, Mike. You could have had it succeed.
The
U-Draw.
I thought it was an interesting idea. I should pull it out and.
It was
try
interesting,
it
but it was it was ill-timed. It wasn't the right place.
I was like trying all those like quirky ideas.
Nice. Yeah, you could have had U-Draw 2, and that would have been a great title. I would have appreciated that. So yeah, that rule by no means I would take away Nintendo's creativity, but everyone would be able to play Mario. You don't have to do that. We wouldn't have to worry about being hampered by their weird half-baked or very Nintendo 2 steps forward, 1 step because we say so Nintendo styles and stuff like that. So that's how I'd imagine that wish would work. Third, fighting games are more popular than shooters, and that's a very personal one for me, so that actually wouldn't be helping the industry overall, but me personally, that would be something I thought about, where like I feel just shooters are so, and maybe that's just my personal perspective, I think, like, but it's very much the same way. I feel like shooters are very generic feeling overall, because it's always like pointing, shooting, and maybe some stuff, like there's always a grenade, there's always a jump, there's a slide, there's things and then maybe some.
Oh, you can say that about any.
But that's what I'm saying. Also,
fighting games are so generic. There's always a kick, there's a punch, there's always a jump.
Right, and you can apply the same thing to fighting games. But I think, personally, in general, I feel it is way more entertaining to see fighting games played than watching from first person, and the animations are just always cooler. It just always looks better. It's third person. It's like it just, in my opinion, it's more visually fun to watch. And you can have equivalent mechanical depth. And also, I imagine if fighting games were more popular, we'd also see more like melee-focused multiplayer games that would essentially qualify as fighting, instead of seeing every single type of genre being some variation of a shooter. Like Fortnite's a shooter. Battle Royales are shooters. The only thing that's not really like a first-person shooter that's huge is the MOBAs. MOBAs are not shooters. They're the closest thing, but I think their controls are terrible as well, because it requires like the pointing and clicking with a mouse, and like it's not direct one-to-one commands and stuff. And for me, that's also not a very fun control scheme in practice. I understand there's still a lot of technical depth to it, and it's still really good games, and I respect them in that regard, but I don't feel they're physically fun to play. So yeah, once again, that was like my one really personal wish. Oh no, my other one here. That was one really personal wish. The second one would also be third-person games are more popular than first-person games. Right now, there are a lot of genres where games are naturally in third person, but this kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that like even shooters, like a lot of shooters are first person, and I think we've had this discussion here. I've definitely talked about like Paul with Resident Evil, and with a bunch of other games where I just feel like even if it's the same genre with a shooter, like third person is just naturally more engaging and entertaining, and I just wish everyone else agreed with that. So
I agree with you on that. I like third person a lot better.
yeah. So, and I also feel like you get better animation quality out of it because there's tricks that they pull and do. Like you can go see like with mods on YouTube and stuff how when they pull back the camera for first person games, how they can get away with a lot of things not being animated a certain way on the character because they have to fit the perspective or how actually jank it is to make the guns appear inside the frame, the camera frame and all that and all those weird little things. So, yeah, I just think third person makes a lot more sense for that. So those were the really personal ones that really don't do anything for the industry. Fifth, cross-platform play for all multiplayer games, mandatory. We just set it in stone and finally just get it over with. Like from now on, if it comes out and it's multiplayer and it's multi-platform, not counting exclusives, but if it ever does go cross multi-platform, it's just a given. It's going to be playable. If it goes on the Switch, if it goes on the Xbox, it goes on the PlayStation, it goes on the PC, every single one of them are playable together. If it goes on any of the different launchers on PC, that every single thing connects and everyone's in one player pool. That should just be standard. We're kind of going in that direction, but there's still resistance on the company side for like every game doing it. So this would just be my wish to make sure it just finally happened and there just be no gaps. Next, number 6, loot boxes go away or never exist. And I feel like, that harkens back to what you were saying, like no microtransactions. So it's like, I think loot boxes, the gambling, that whole aspect there, and I'm not sure if it would be better to just cut them off now so we have the information from what they were like back then and then move forward from that without them ever being used again, or go back in time and let and take, like it just never happened. Loot boxes were never a thing, never could be a thing. And how the industry would then have what route that would have take, and I have no idea what that would have been like, and what kind of ideas we would have seen, or what kind of problems we would have avoided. Who knows? Maybe Star Wars Battlefront 2 would have actually been good from the start. And they did retroactively fix it a lot, and it did become more of a actual video game. But still, like imagine what it would have been like if that could have just launched to giant praise forever that it was never that. And for games, maybe even like oh no, it wasn't loot boxes, but it was microtransactions for Dead Space 3, and maybe Dead Space 3 would have never been a problem. That's a personal one for me. But yeah, so that I'm not sure which way that would go. What do you guys think? That's the one where I have the most the first one with a lot of leeway is, do you think it should be they existed and from this point forward, like we have the lessons learned and you're never allowed to. It's fully illegal. No one will ever do it again. Or do you think we should go back in time and like see what happened, risk it and see what happens if they never existed?
Turn back time.
No, I think they should have existed so that we could learn from them.
Oh man, we disagree on this. Yeah, I say turn back time. There's nothing good about
it. Okay.
But the only problem with that is like you basically can't, because you already have like Pokemon cards. You already have like slot. Like the idea of a random chance game already exists. So I think like for that to actually be, it's not a huge step to go from like gaming on a slot machine to opening a Pokemon card to go into opening a loot box. So I think I don't think it's actually possible to turn back time in a sense because there's too much similar that isn't games. So.
I posit, I see where you're coming from, but I posit that with the physical stuff, because it's physical, it has a different inherent level of value because it can be traded outside of its own ecosystem. Whereas with everything digital, like you could never go up to someone and be like, "Hey, I have all these digital Pokemon cards. I'll trade them for your Yu-Gi-Oh set, or I'll trade them for your car." Like you can't you can't take it outside the ecosystem. You can't trade it for money. It's just locked to whatever that game to the game itself.
You can
Where
do that in some games though. Can't you like sell hats in like Team Fortress 2? Isn't that an example of a game where you can actually sell the the digital items for money?
Oh yeah, and as we were talking about before, like Dota, you can trade the stuff for real money and cash out. So yeah, but
Maybe
that's
that's just
very
Valve. Maybe
limited.
that's just Valve.
Right, sure. But I'm also saying like in the real world, like you could trade Pokemon cards for money and then take that money and go somewhere else. Or you could even trade that for value to someone for a collector's item. Like you could put them up at auctions and people would do that. But or you don't have to limit it to just money. You could trade it for other physical value. But with the digital sides, the loot boxes it's just an inherently different level of value, and they're near useless otherwise. It's just a money sink. Whereas for the physical events, because as things get more rare over time, the further we get away, or if like Nintendo or Game Freak, whoever's in charge of the Pokemon cards, really, the physical side ever went, you know what? We're just never reprinting these cards. We're going to start from scratch and kind of redo it. Not like the way they did now, where they kind of repurpose a bunch, but like literally said, we're just never making any of those old cards again. We're starting completely fresh. They're all useless. Like those eventually then depreciate because it's physical. It can wear out. They can disintegrate. There's fewer and fewer, just like the comic book boom way back in the day.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a different value.
They don't last forever.
Yeah. So that's where I think it's a little bit different. But I see your point there. But I think it just doesn't apply because the medium matters. Next up, controllers become platform agnostic. It just naturally, it no longer matters what controller you use on which platform. Of course, there would be the features, but if the platform doesn't support the features, you just don't have to worry about it. Like the game just doesn't use it, but it has everything else. We're kind of already there where the Switch, the Xbox, and the PlayStation all have the same basic features of two joysticks, a D-pad, the 4 face buttons, 2 option buttons, the 4 shoulder buttons. The only thing right now that's outside the norm for those is that the Switch has digital triggers, and Xbox and PlayStation still have analog triggers. It's the only thing. It's really different. But as we all know, like some of the games, like it's not a huge thing to have between the digital and analog. I think it's silly that Nintendo went that way, but whatever. But that's where it would make a lot. That's where I was kind of going with that. Is then you don't have to worry and just naturally you can use whatever controller. There are the third-party accessories that work now, and I get that. So I was just thinking, what if it was just natural and you don't have to fight about this, and then they could just release like one style of controller with all the firmware in it? Because I don't know. I think there's like weird licensing stuff that prevents like them from making like multi-console controllers unless it's like a super indie development team. So that's what I was envisioning there.
So having controllers be platform agnostic, part of me feels like you'd miss out on stuff like the motion controls that we have on the Wii or the Joy-Con. But then a stronger part of me says, good riddance, just make it all be normal controllers. So I might have to agree with you on that one.
Yeah, and maybe that would also encourage other, like both the other platform holders or the third parties to make controllers with those additional features to support more games. So it could still be there, or maybe more game types would use
Yeah,
those
they could have like other different accessories that work with each system, right?
Yeah, because right now it's pretty much like based on a set of controllers, or it's based on the platform, like what's available. Like Sony PlayStation has the gyro feature and all the haptic triggers now, and the rumble, the haptic feedback plus the adjustable triggers, and all that's just exclusive to PlayStation. But third parties aren't going to really have incentive to bring that to the Xbox version because the Xbox controller doesn't have that when it has all the other stuff. And the same thing with Switch. While Switch has HD Rumble, which is close to that, and gyro, so you could have that, but there's a lot of PlayStation 5 games that aren't going to be easy enough to scale down to the Switch. So then there's no analog triggers on the Switch. So there's just this mismatch here, and so there's not that much incentive to make these specialized to take advantage of those specialized features if they're not making an exclusive game for it or don't decide to put in the effort. But maybe with this agnostic thing, then that would be a little more ubiquitous, so they could plan for more of that. So maybe it would have the opposite effect where it would actually get more of those features on there rather than causing everything to stay the way it was. But yeah, that's
I think it would probably have the effect of having fewer features because it would be easier
sure,
just to standardize a base feature set. But
sure.
maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't know for I'm not sure either. But my main thing is like how I've been searching. I've told you guys, but how I'm searching for like the perfect controller and how I really want like kind of an all-in-one because all I need is like a really good clicky D-pad in order to enjoy fighting games, and then everything else about the controller can be like standard. And so I really love the Xbox Series controller, and I can use that on my PC, but I can't use that on my Switch. And luckily, I don't really play any traditional fighting games on the Switch right now, so it's a non-issue. But for the number of classic PlayStation 4 games I still play via backwards compatibility on PS5, I'm stuck using the DualSense or using the PS4. With both of those, I think their D-pads are inferior compared to the new Series controller, but I have to deal with it. And third-party solutions can be expensive to try and find that, or they just don't make them because people have specific preferences, and those ones that do or don't apply as whatever's most popular. Sometimes I just can't get what I want, and I'd have to buy like one of those third-party solutions. But yeah, once again, if I really did want to and I really cared enough, I could buy some of those extra dongles. But it'd be nice if it was just ubiquitous throughout. And I think that would also help for other players, like how Xbox has that I forget what they call it, but that accessibility controller they have.
Adaptive controller, isn't it
Yeah,
called?
yeah. So that would even be cool, where it's like, yep, this is allowed to just have firmware for all of it, and Microsoft can just market it, and then people can just buy that Microsoft controller and put it on their PlayStation, put it on their Switch, and Microsoft wouldn't complain. They're making hardware, and a whole new audience has opened up as a whole new revenue stream. And maybe that would then encourage PlayStation to go, oh, maybe we should do that. Sony would have to do it, and then Nintendo would also go like, yeah, maybe we should also do that because people are buying that, and we can make a competing offer. So I'd hope for something like that as well. Would help a number of people. So that's something that could be more industry-wide helping rather than just my own personal preference there for my own petty need for a clicky D-pad.
Yeah, if I could have one controller that was good for everything and I only had the one controller, I'd be happy with that. I'm a big fan of just having fewer devices. I mean, I keep stuff around because there's games I need it to play, but I would always like to have fewer things.
Yeah, and especially now with a lot of more things just being wireless, a lot of the wireless protocols are similar or not difficult to add to other things. Xbox still uses their a Wi-Fi signal or a custom Wi-Fi bandwidth signal, I think, and where PlayStation has been using Bluetooth, and Bluetooth can be dubious as well, but hopefully it keeps getting better, or there might be a new wireless signal at some point, but so on and so forth. So next, moving on. You can always back up saves offline. I think we're just all in agreement. We kind of miss memory cards, and we miss being able to just be like, hey, I don't need a subscription for cloud saves. I just want to be able to put in a thumbstick or a USB driver, just back it up. And mostly I do that because I'm so frustrated with Nintendo being so afraid of piracy that now no longer can you back up saves, and especially with how crazy they make it for it's just ridiculous for switching. If you need to buy another Switch and transfer stuff, it's just you don't have Nintendo Online, you're screwed. And even then, their cloud backup saves don't apply to every game. Splatoon 2 is like a first-party game. They can't even save some of the data. It just mandatory. Let us do it. Let us trade saves. Let us, we were talking about Smash Brothers, and you're like, I would just rather borrow someone's save file and unlock all the characters and not have to do that because I don't appreciate the grind. You were talking about that, Ed, and like, yeah, we could just do that. Why not? Who cares? Let us do it. So
I'm gonna suggest an even further step in terms of backing up saves. I really like how on Mac OS they have the time machine backup, where it will keep you can keep a drive hooked up to your Mac, and it'll keep like historical copies of every file on your Mac, even in the sense that like if it'll keep them as often as like every hour for the past week than every day for the past month. Like it has more frequent backups for newer versions of the file. So like if they had something where like I could just throw in like a solid state drive and have it connect and it's automatically backing up, so like basically it's the convenience of a cloud save, just local. because you don't have to think about it. And if you want to restore, you just hook it up and restore from the latest backup. And you can even like step back to earlier versions if you feel there's something you missed. So something
like
that easy. Because I actually tried the backup on the PS4 recently on a USB drive, and it wasn't really as easy as I wanted it to be. I ended up getting PS Plus because I got a deal for it, and I wanted this cloud saves, and I also wanted the new PS5, PS Plus games as they started coming out. So, but I looked into it. It wasn't as smooth as it wasn't that hard, but it ended up erroring out for me. So maybe I did something wrong, but at that point I was like, nah, I better get the cloud saves. I don't want to lose my saves.
Yeah, no, I completely hear you, and I'm with you on that. I think that'd actually be really cool as the next feature, and I could reasonably see that even being implemented as a value add to like the paid services, which leads into my next possible wish. Once again, these are all possible for our listeners who are just chiming in or might have been lost. We just no longer pay for online multiplayer on consoles. Just it's out of it. Everything else they have to add value if you want to pay extra for it. And so that would be a great thing. Like you said, Ed, is what if it wasn't just automatic save backups to the cloud? It was also like you'd also have historic saves, so it would keep saving multiple steps and all these ones. And I think to some extent, you can do that on like the PSN cloud, but it's a little tricky. Or it automatically does it in some spots and saves multiple copies of a save from different spots. Or no. Because actually this happened with me when I was playing Kingdom Hearts 3 and the new DLC came out, and they'd updated and they had to change a few things. If you create the multiple save files, it'll copy all of those individual save files to the cloud, and then those kind of act as that thing. But like you were saying, I like it better. But automatically, it's just saving those files, and you could roll back to previous versions if you really wanted to. Or even built into the game software, that wouldn't be a bad idea. So
yeah, I mean, take it one step even further. Maybe we're still talking about saves, but maybe they just standardize the save. You already like there's no difference like standardize the same save method across games, but that's
I don't know about
that's a completely different discussion.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I feel like there's a much more technical discussion to be had on that. But we've been doing save files for so long, you'd think they'd have it figured out. But regardless, yeah, pretty clean cut. Just maybe even that one's change it to be like we never had to pay for online at all. We just had online multiplayer. It was always free. It should have been, and we go forward and see what happens from there. So pretty clean cut.
It used to be the only reason it started is because of Microsoft.
Right. So that's the thing. I think that one we could apply the time travel one. Next up, and it harkens to these last two. Actually, harken, Ed, you touched on them earlier, so it's going to sound real similar. Game archiving becomes an official initiative with essentially Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, Sega, all the platform holders. Like they're just on board now for, you know what? Yes, here are digital versions of our games that have been re-encoded, and they are available on a digital format in PC, and archiving for gaming history. They apply to what's that rule called? Not open source. The
fair use.
Fair use, public domain. Eventually, it's like whatever the limit is, the normal limit is, and then they're just available there, and that way nothing gets lost, and you can always revisit. And maybe as long as the company is still around, they can charge for it. But if the company dissolves or it becomes unclear the IP holders, then they're just available for free on whatever the historical independent servers and archiving are, and you can go there. And luckily, there's a lot of independent people doing that stuff already. It's really cool how for some of the older games we've reached a technological point where like NES games and SNES games and maybe even Sega Genesis and certain arcade titles where you can just emulate them in browser. You just go to a website, boot it up, and they're basically like converted to Flash type games, and it just loads up in your browser. You don't even need to download an emulator or tweak any settings. I mean, you could, and you could just plug in your controller and start playing there. No additional work there. So that would be really cool.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
And then we'd have to stop worrying about that. And then kind of a companion to that, but hearkening to something I realized, and I had to include this because it made a lot of sense. And Ed, I was so happy you brought it up as well, because I think this is pretty clean cut. licensing for like music and other IPs and all that extra stuff that we're hearing, the DMCA's and all that crap that's really dragging down and prevents some of the games from in the old history from being brought forward for whatever. Licensing for video games when it comes to outside property stuff, music, etc., is no longer a nightmare. Everyone is just cool with it. It's fine. You just like, yep, you can use it. Oh, you already made it before? Then it's fine. You know what?
You have to if you license something for a game, it's in perpetuity and across formats and platforms.
As long as you're re-releasing it,
the same game with the same license, yeah.
If you want to up-res it, that's fine. If you're tuning the frame rate, that's fine because of that. But it's identical. It's nearly identical to the same thing in terms of content. It's just performs better. That's cool. If you're adding new stuff, that's different. You have to make new deals. But the old stuff that was already there in license, it's like, yeah, you own it. That's fine. We'll figure out the money. Or even you don't need to because you paid the thing or whatever. Like, just all that stuff is no longer a nightmare, and they would be like under a mind spell, and they just figure it out, and it'd be fine. And if companies were gone, oh well, you come to us if you figure out you have the IP, and we'll figure it out. Like, that would be something that would just be so much great, and there's no more DMCA issues on like Twitch and all that stuff. Streamers don't and content creators don't have to worry about like that content being flagged and their stuff being taken down. Like, everyone just gets it. Like, all the industry people who are sticks in the mud will just be like, yep, no, it's cool, we got it. So I had to stick that on the list as number 11 as possibles. So as you guys will remember.
Did you speaking of music, did you see that a Twitch stream of a Metallica performance was dubbed over to avoid copyright issues? Like, they couldn't even stream their own concert.
Yes.
On Blizzard's channel. And Metallica was like, they were the ones originally against Napster in the days.
Yep.
It's kind of ironic.
For our listeners who aren't aware of that story, just to recap, to the best of my understanding, is that for this year's BlizzCon, which had to be held digitally, they wanted to have Metallica perform because apparently it's like some sort of thing for them. Metallica wasn't able to perform live or refused to play live because obviously COVID, but they had given them the opportunity to play a pre-recorded jam session, it looked like, because it looked like in someone's basement, honestly, of the concert of the Metallica playing a song. But then when Blizzard streamed it on Twitch, it got replaced with public domain music because they were afraid of being DMCA.
I read called it slightly aggressive elevator music.
But yeah, like, that's the sort of thing where even though Blizzard probably had some sort of agreement for that stuff there, it's like the music company still may not have signed off, or the bots on Twitch may have caught it and destroyed the stream. Like, it's so ridiculous that you can't even get that close to something official that's like signed off on, and you still have to worry about someone going, well, we might not be getting as much money, or someone's gonna pirate that music. Like, just guys, come on. Like, sell the song. Like, come on. Solvable issues. Piracy is a customer service issue. Get over yourselves. But yeah, so that's where that kind of comes from. Great point, Ed, bringing that up. So yeah, that was my 11 possibilities. And as you'll remember, guys, when I texted you before, my top original three were Nintendo goes third party, cross-platform play for all the games, and then fighting games become more popular than shooters. Those are my original three.
Are those still your three?
That's the thing. I'm willing to drop the fighting games thing because the licensing, or like the game archiving, or the not paying online, like all the other things that pretty much all the other ones, minus like the third person and the fighting and the mandatory 60 FPS. I feel like the 60 FPS thing is something that's going to be an eventuality. Eventually, it's just not going to be an issue. Whereas any of those other things would infinitely make the industry better. And I feel like
you can take one for yourself, though. That's allowed. You're allowed to be a little selfish.
I know, but you know what? It still helps me, even if it's one of those other ones. So I'm trying to think. I think I would go with, because it would most directly affect consumers like getting money back, would be wish number 9, replacing the fighting games as my official third wish, which would be no longer pay for we never had to pay for online multiplayer in gaming. Like it was just given. If it had multiplayer, you don't pay extra for that. All the services had to justify their value without it. So and
Yeah,
that would be retroactive in time.
subscriptions add value. They don't.
Yep.
They don't just block out a feature.
Yep, exactly. No paywall for that feature. Because also when Act 360 did that originally, like they had a whole debacle because people couldn't technically use Netflix at first because they had to have gold, and then eventually Microsoft was like, well, all right, you're right. Yeah, we shouldn't be charging you twice for that. So I think Netflix might have lawyered up against him. I'm not sure about that, but I makes me laugh thinking that Netflix were like, Microsoft, come on. You can't do that, or else you got to give us a cut too, or something like that. But yeah, so I think I replaced that as my third wish. So once again, Nintendo goes third party.
I don't like that one.
You would love it. You'd eventually love it.
If I could like buy all Nintendo games on PlayStation, but for like certain games you had to buy the Nintendo controller, but you could use that same Nintendo controller across different games, like and maybe how about this, Mike? What if Nintendo went third party for console games, but they maintain just the handheld market? Because I feel like, this with the Switch, you're basically getting console games on the go. Like, I don't consider a lot of the games on Switch to be like handheld the games in the sense that they were for like Game Boy or DS or 3DS, just because they're not of the same. Like, they're a much larger scale. They're not games that are portable in the sense that they're more bite size and smaller scale. I mean, I would like to see just a dedicated handheld that has these smaller scale, less complex, and maybe not $60 games, because now everything on Switch is a $60 game. Even stuff like Link's Awakening that is, it's an update, but it just doesn't feel like a handheld anymore. What if Nintendo just cornered the handheld market, but their console market was handled by Sony and Microsoft?
I just hate the idea of like one of the original companies to like pioneer gaming, like just suddenly becomes third party. Like
I hear you, Mike. You hate the idea that more people could play Mario. I understand. I feel for you. But unfortunately, we're just gonna have to pry that from your hands. We're gonna have to let Xbox and PlayStation people be able to play Mario as well. Sorry, you just got to deal with it.
He hates the idea that you could play a 3D Mario game without having to waggle your controller action.
No,
He's like, Mike's like, I had to suffer. They have to suffer too. No, but you know what, Ed? Like, that's a good point. Like, they could still technically make their own hardware, but literally they would just release their games on everyone's platforms as well. Like, that technically works. Just nobody.
Nobody would buy their hardware if that were the case.
Not necessarily true. I mean, because now that I think about it, like, Xbox is sort of doing that. Like, they put Ori and the Blind Forest on Switch. They were trying to put Game Pass on Switch, and they probably pitched it to Sony as well. But it's more.
I just think we wouldn't have got things like the Wii. Like, if they went third party, we wouldn't have got things like the Wii or like even like hybrid systems like the Switch. I don't know if we would have ever gotten something like that if it wasn't for Nintendo being having their own consoles and being first party.
With the Switch, I don't know what I'd have to say about that, but I personally, I think I'd be fine with that not being a thing, because I could just buy a gaming laptop and play my favorite Nintendo games on my gaming laptop portably. So
I would have rather they just kept
or it goes to the iPad. I don't even care.
They should have just kept. What if they just got after the Wii U? They just kept. I still think keep the 3DS line, because I think the 3DS was a more interesting handheld than the Switch is. The Switch is just a tablet that docks.
No.
The Switch is just a tablet that docks. Well, maybe that's a.
The 3DS doesn't even have two analog sticks, two real analog sticks. It's bad.
It has two screens. It has touch screen.
The touchscreen wasn't even capacitive, Ed. You have to admit, like, it is, like, that's those Nintendo eccentricities where it's literally like, well, we know it's better, but we're just gonna be cheap. Like,
I'm not saying you stop at the 3DS, but you move forward
more
with that,
powerful
like
DS.
The folding form factor, the screens, the touch screen. Like, I liked what they were doing with that as than I do with the Switch.
I don't
Yeah, but
disagree
they
with
could
you
do
on the
that.
clamshell.
A
They
better
could do
version
that
of
for a Switch. Like a
They
future Switch could be like that.
They could make it'd be tough, especially with that screen size, because you have to make it symmetrical. Well, you don't have to, but it's better if you make it somewhat symmetrical for that. But yeah, I could like I can get behind the idea of the clamshell, but not like the 3DS itself was still like half baked. It was weird Nintendo.
I like the 3DS.
It was fine for the time, but it was not as good as it could have been. The Vita was arguably still better than the 3DS. Actually, I will say that the Vita was better than the 3DS. It just didn't have the games to prove it.
No way.
I'm gonna stand by that statement. Like the original Vita with the OLED screen pioneering that. I think it was only 540p, which kind of sucked, but I think that's still high resolution than even the 3D screen for the top screen for the 3DS. It had 2 actual analog sticks. Yes, they were small
I
nubs.
really like the dual screen and what they did with that.
I like the dual screen too.
I don't hate the dual screen, but I will take one larger capacitive touchscreen over one 16:9 screen and then a 4:3 non-capacitive
I
touchscreen.
just remember playing games that like totally took like where you were using like the touchscreen and it. I mean, they were fun to play too.
Yeah, but we know Ryan hates those games. Like I love The World Ends With. He hates the game that's around that game. So.
I don't hate it. It's just it truly was like it was a unique gimmick that ultimately the gimmick
was awesome.
It wasn't really necessary to achieve the goal. It could have been easier to play.
I remember one of my favorites was like Pac Picks or whatever. You drew like different size Pac-Man. That was fun.
I'm not like I said, I'm not against the touchscreen aspect, but I'll take the one bigger capacitive over this secondary smaller one because it just.
But they could have made it better over time.
They could have, but they didn't. And now the Switch is capacitive, and like I said, I'm taking that because it's essentially an evolution of the Vita, and I think it's better.
like the stylus.
You can still use a stylus on a capacitive screen. You just have to buy a capacitive capable stylus.
I've used a stylus with a screen. You really need it to be like active stylus, like with Apple Pen, for it to be good.
And
but
they should develop one.
Or like the Samsung Galaxy Note. That one works well.
Yeah, they just.
But this is way off the original conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But you can tell that this is really a contentious issue when it sparks this much. Much discussion.
It stemmed from Mike being greedy and jealous and not wanting other people to play Mario. So that's. I'm just joking with you, buddy.
No one's stopping them from buying it. Yeah. Okay.
Well, why? You are the last person who would advocate for anyone to have to spend extra money on anything. So you're gonna have to take that back right now.
But historically, like Nintendo systems have been pretty cheap. Like. I mean, the Switch is pretty expensive,
affordable.
But historically, like they've
the
been
Switch is expensive
cheap.
when Joy-Cons are consumable items and the games are always $60.
I eat Joy-Cons for breakfast.
I mean, that's a whole other discussion that we'll get into on one of the monetization episodes. Is like the base price of games and digital goods and stuff like that. But So we'll save that. So let's move on to our final segment here, and see if we can't collectively pick 3 wishes and see if we want to do a 4th bonus wish that is a monkey paw drawback. And if we do that, and I have stressed that if we do, we will pick the drawback, but we will make sure it's something that is meaningfully painful to us in order to get the thing we like. But okay, so first we'll go around the room again, and feel free if you want to say what would be your pick for the 3 wishes, now hearing all of our wishes. So we'll go back to Ed first. So now having heard all of our wishes, Ed, what's like a wish from that you would want to pick there, or even your idea for the 3 wishes? And I'll write it down so we can. We should have had a doc going because we could have shared that and everyone could have been looking at all the wishes. We did not plan this out properly, but that's okay. We are figuring this stuff out, and if hopefully I would like to do this kind of episode annually so we can always revisit, because we might have new wishes and stuff, and hopefully some of these things will have come true and then we don't have to wish for them. But yeah, Ed, what 3 would you want to vote for, considering that you've now heard all our wishes?
Well, I might suggest that having Iwata back at the helm at Nintendo is one that we could all agree on, but I'll let you guys say that, what you feel on that.
Oh, we're going around the room first, so yep, Iwata.
Yeah. Your third wish was that online is not is free, right? Online play is free, right?
Yeah, not pay for online and retroactive.
Yeah, I'd have to pick that as one because that's a big sticking issue with me for a lot, because I do get value other than play it, but I don't feel it just feels like something that is wrong to
Yeah.
paywall.
And that would directly give people money back because it'd be we do the time travel retroactive.
Yeah, Mike, what was your third one again?
Are you talking about the all-powerful Switch or Spyro and Smash?
All powerful Switch was your third one.
I kind of like the idea of an all-powerful.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if it's the one device, but yeah, I like that idea because I would like.
Okay.
There's a lot of third-party games. I feel like, there aren't too many Sony or Microsoft exclusives that I feel like I couldn't live without. So,
Yeah.
If I could get everything and have it be on Switch, and I think I would like that, especially if it would maintain the handheld nature of this.
Yeah, still hybrid cell. Okay, that's great. Mike, what are your 3 votes now that you've heard all of our wishes?
I
And you
would
can still come up with something new if you wanted to, but
I would say, yeah, bring Iwata back.
Okay.
But yeah, bring him back in puppet form like when they did the Muppets.
in puppet form, okay.
Not zombie form, zombie Wada.
Has to be, yeah, that'd be a monkey paw wish. He has to be zombie puppet. Okay, second wish?
Yeah, but not really puppet. I'm joking when I say puppet form. Yeah, for the second one, I also like the idea of having online be free for all the systems.
Okay.
And I guess it's the same as add the all-powerful Switch.
The one Switch to rule them all.
Yeah.
Switch, okay. All right, and then so that would leave for me. I guess we really are kind of in line here because I think Iwata coming back, that would be pretty cool. As long as that didn't lead to contradicting our third wish there, we'd get the third all powerful. But I guess since we wish it with the Genie, that means that Iwata would be on board for that, or he would spearhead that. So
he'd do the Wii U too.
Yeah. Oh, although, quick aside,
it comes built with U2's latest album built in. You can't delete it.
That'd be awful. But yeah, a quick aside. I probably mentioned this on one of the previous episodes. I forgive listeners. I'm going to be saying that a lot because I forget, because we talk about all this stuff on the side as well when we get ready for the episodes. But if you guys remember, just say so. It was saying that I think for like whatever the Switch successor will be, not like the upgrade, but like a real, like when they get ready to do like a full real generation leap with the Switch, I feel like that's what they're building up to, is they will pioneer some new wireless HDMI stuff, so that way you can hold the Switch in handheld mode, have it beaming to the TV to project the screen, and then you still have the controller in your hands and you can use the touchscreen there for the Wii U style features. And basically they then realized the Wii U as people really wanted it, which was you hold the console and then it beams out to the TV and that projects a different thing, and on the screen you can still do stuff with a second screen. So maybe we add that, and that'd be part of our all-powerful Switch upgrade, is that you have the all-powerful Switch plus the wireless HDMI, so you can have your Wii U 2, your Wii Switch U. How about that?
No, just the Switch U.
All right.
Yeah, that would be pretty sweet.
Okay, so yeah, I think we have that there. I think we're pretty much in consensus. Our 3 wishes would be bring Iwata back to life in full health. He would be able to live a normal life till whatever the next natural, death would be. It's morbid to say, but that's what it would be. Not all, we would retroactively through time say we never had to pay through online, and all that money would go back into people's pockets and the industry would just deal with it. And then an all-powerful Switch maintaining hybrid. It would be as strong, if not more powerful, than the PS5. It would then be able to do the wireless HDMI, where it would broadcast the main screen out to your TV if you wanted. You don't have to, but it could. And then you can use the touchscreen in your palms with the with the touchscreen features, and be able to realize the true Wii U experience as it would have been intended, or we assume it'd be intended. Um, and then that way we could also get more third-party games at full capability on there, and Nintendo games would actually be able to be made at like without so many limitations and whatnot. Yeah,
I
so
actually don't think, other than Zombie Iwata, I think the other two are not that outlandish. I mean, I think it's definitely possible that online play does become a free feature, especially now that there's more of a focus on getting games as part of your subscription. That might be something just to lure people to the platform. And we know from what Apple's done with their ARM chips that you can have a very capable processor that is extremely fast and also very efficient and be mobile. So I think both of those are possibilities in the future.
so yeah, no, I think Microsoft would be the first to do it. They would be most likely to be like, you know what, we've got enough people on Game Pass, we got enough people buying into Xbox services where we can now make that a benefit. You know what? We're just not charging for online multiplayer. People do that, but I bet, like obviously it's bringing in money. It's basically free money for them. Um, but I wonder if they have the stats to show how many people literally only subscribe and only do like online gaming, and how many of those people how much money that would mean they'd lose because there's people who are not taking advantage. Like there's probably going to pick on a specific demographic of gamers here, but there's probably people who only play like Call of Duty and FIFA online, and they never once claimed an Xbox Live Gold game. They never once took advantage of like a sale. They never once used one of those other bonus features that's with Xbox Live Gold. And so Microsoft has that data to know like we would lose X millions to billions of dollars if we actually took that out.
It's
because
probably a lot. It's probably a lot.
And they we've talked about that before as well, is that they're scraping and scrounging for as much money as they can. It literally has nothing to do with being reasonable. So I think you'd have to force that for everyone. That's why it makes a good wish. And then the second thing, the unrealistic part is that Nintendo, unless something seriously changes, Nintendo will not go for making a super powerful handheld. And actually, I'm going to argue this. I'm going to argue this with our wish and add one more part to the part 3 wish of all powerful Switch. They would foot the bill for it being extra expensive. So they'd be like super powerful Switch with the beaming capability of the thing, because that part's realistic. It just the tech needs to get there. It's not quite there. And even with the Wii U, like I'm sure we've all experienced the Wii U. That connection to the gamepad, while not absolutely perfect, was pretty darn good and responsive. Like I played Smash Wii U on there a few times, and it really didn't feel like it was that bad. And even though then for other games, like playing beaming to the gamepad was pretty good. That part wasn't that bad. So it's like just reversing it and making sure it connects, and we've got the smartphones and tablets beaming to TVs now. It's not like the tech isn't on its way. Just needs a little more tightening to reduce latency.
Well, when is it gonna beam us to the TV?
Yeah, like Mike TV and Willy Wonka.
Yeah, then we can get off of it.
Yeah, but I will add that Nintendo, in its foresight, would also be like, we're going to offer this super powerful hybrid handheld, and it's still going to be $300 at max price, because they're like, because they make enough money. They do. They make enough money, and we were having that side conversation in Smash about like the Smash DLC, as you guys might recall from the other night.
Yeah.
And it's like they totally have enough money that they could foot the bill for that, and a lot of these other companies do, and that's where I also feel like Amazon and Google, if they really wanted to get in the gaming space, like they should just build gaming PCs, make it super cheap, and just ask people to subscribe to their gaming services on the hardware, and just foot the bill to break in, because that's what's gonna get, like that's the easy way, is make that barrier to entry where it's super cheap for people to want to dabble and try. But then
they should just give you a free all-powerful Switch.
We can't wish for it to be free, but we can wish for them to keep the same price. Or I will draw the line there. Or if the Genie's going to draw the line there.
There was no rule like that.
Yeah, there was.
We
That was
can't we
like
can't
the-
make all games free. Like it was, but you can't like.
Well, you can make a system free.
You-
They hand them out at GameStop.
We're gonna, you know what?
Walmart
You
or
know what,
something.
Mike? You know what, Mike? We'll use that to transition into our very last part here for Monkey Paw bonus wish. I will not, and I will back you. I will support you on. Okay, the all-powerful Switch could be provided for free. You still got to pay for games. Like that's not negotiable because you can't make games free. But we'd have to give something in trade. We have to have a con for that immense positive. So if we're gonna take that all-power Switch with all those features we talked about, and they'd sell it for free. I don't even know. What's the con? What do you?
100 of them explode.
100 out of every 1,000 explode.
I don't know.
What if I might suggest that games are $100? That you
Game
get
prices go up though. Okay, interesting. I actually go on.
I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say like the gaming service or whatever is like $100 a month or some ridiculous price.
Yeah, Mike, so you were going in the direction I was going to go. What we talked about before on the subscription episode for monetization was what if the system itself was like no extra cost, but you had to be subscribed to the Nintendo subscription, whatever, the Nintendo Online service, and then that would have to be like $30 a month. The only way it worked. Like remember I was talking about that option where
Yeah.
yeah, so I feel like maybe that's it, but I don't feel like that's harsh enough. But I don't know, like
Yeah,
what do you
for
guys
a
think?
super powerful
The exploding is pretty harch because you don't know if you're gonna get like a
Exploding is-
defective. You don't know if you're gonna get a defective system or
The-
not. So like,
the
it's at your
exploding
own
one.
risk.
Well, you
Explode-
have like a 0.0001% chance of dying when you buy your Switch.
You have to
Yeah,
like
right.
sign a waiver or whatever.
I mean, you still technically have that chance there because there is like a chance for catastrophic failure of the Switch, like the battery or something could short circuit, and the batteries are still dangerous. If they catastrophically failed, like it's not an incredibly high chance, but you know, like we all know the stories of the batteries in phones exploding and like maiming people, so it would be a similar risk. I feel like that might be a bridge too far, like literally threatening lives with that. So that's where I'll say
Well,
like
you're not
that's a little too much.
threatening them. I mean, it's like
It
it's
is.
that.
You're saying that there is a definitive risk, like 100 out of every 1,000 switches explodes.
That's 10% of Switches explode.
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty fair. Like, I think that concept in general is too much. But I feel like if we're going to choose that, it would have to be that level of dangerous in order to make it viable. Like, yeah, it's free and games stay the same prices, but all powerful Switch hybrid free might explode and hurt you.
You
I
have to
wouldn't
sign the waiver before you buy it.
exactly. You have to sign the waiver. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the subscription thing might be make a little more sense. Like, but if paying like $50 a month for that, what would you get? What would you get? It's just the Switch. Like, but then you're just paying a subscription for the Switch, and so actually that's even.
No, you would.
Nintendo
You
Pass.
could get like Nintendo Pass or something.
I think we're asking for too much with that. I think.
Well, if it was $100 a month, but I don't know.
I
I don't know
but
if that's really like.
That's
giving something up,
$1,200
though.
a year. You could buy like 2 Super Switches for that in 1
Yeah,
year. That-
But it's the only option.
I
you
feel
You
like
buy
have,
so many
because it-
games because you still got to pay for the games. So that'd be like Google Stadia. That's that's almost as bad as Google Stadia. So no, I like no one would buy that. We'd handicap.
You mean
Only
no
Mike,
one would take it for free?
Mike, yeah, no one would take it for free. Like Mike, because it's technically not free. You're subscribing. That's
Mike,
so that's
you just drove Nintendo to bankruptcy with your
I did.
leadership. This is
Did.
why we need Iwata.
But let's see. Free Switch. Games stay the same price. Free Super Switch. Mega Switch. Ultra Switch. Perfect Switch.
What if like, okay, so you get the Switch for free, but like you get this
Nope.
all powerful Switch for free, but like you can only game for so many years, and then your hands like won't work properly at
That already naturally happens. People get old and get arthritis. Like that happens.
I know, but like a faster rate. Like
Faster.
it happens in like 5 years or something.
And you have all these morbid ideas. How about
Sorry.
this? You do Super Switch, but there is never another Mario Kart.
Oh,
I think that's a fair trade-off. I think that's the monkey's paw right
like
there.
that would hurt me too, because I really like. So we'd be stuck with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the rest of our lives,
Yes.
but it would always be there.
Yes.
no.
So you wouldn't.
I do not
you would,
accept
you'd
this.
rather.
I do not. It's not worth it.
I'd rather have the 100 every 100 out of 1,000.
He would rather run the chance that his Switch Pro would explode at some point. I would love to make that like the title of the episode. Mike would rather have his Super Switch explode. Oh, that's great.
I think it should just be called like the all-powerful Switch.
Well, we don't have to worry about the name because that's not the monkey. Oh yeah, we could give it a terrible name, but that's not bad enough. If it's free, people will not care. Something reasonable, because the subscription's a little too much, because it's just, I mean, that is a lot, but then essentially you're still paying for it. It's just you.
What if you can only play it for 30 minutes a day?
No, people would also like not do that. I think that also like tanks.
Well, no,
the
you
point
would
of the
take it
product.
if it was free and it just timed out. Like, what do you really
I
have
think
to lose?
I wouldn't take it for. I wouldn't
no,
take
even
it.
I would be like, like it is free, but I'd still have to buy the games, and that's the thing. Like I'd be buying the game, and so any game I buy on the Switch, like I just go to another. That's a convenience thing that would push me to another platform.
What if it wasn't 30? What if it was a little bit more reasonable than 30 minutes?
I mean, if it's handheld, there's already the battery life limitations till you plug it in, so it's like that doesn't. No, I feel like that there's already natural stuff there where
Free
you're not doing
Switch,
enough.
but it uses AA batteries.
Oh my god, it's the new Game Gear. Oh
No, it uses
my
like
God,
AA and AAA batteries, and it uses like 10 AA batteries and like 5 or 4 AAA batteries.
Oh man, I think I do like that. You know what? No, I'll take it up a notch. Let's do this, because just to make it maybe a little more realistic.
Or it uses those like ridiculously huge batteries for like flashlights. What are those? Are those like the? I don't know what those batteries.
It's the HD, yeah, the Mega Ultra, the one switch to rule them all. But it's free, but it takes like 8-9 volts to run, and it only for like undocked. No, because you could just dock it. You could just get around that. So it has to be something.
No, because it's going to be wireless, so it needs that battery life. So
Well, it's not going to be pure wireless. Yeah. It's pure. Like, yes, you're not. They leave out the HDMI, any sort of way to power it outside of batteries.
Yeah.
That's
but
it.
maybe it's like
That's
this new form of battery or something, but it's like these
Nope,
little
we're
like
going with 9 volt. It's going to be like 8-9 volts or 12-9 volts or something or whatever. It has to be
massive though.
It might be, but that's what it's got to be, the massive switch. It's got to be the all powerful one switch to rule.
And I don't think.
And
I don't think. Can you buy rechargeable 9 volts? I don't think you can. There's no like Eneloop 9-volt batteries.
I don't think you can, but I think that's the price.
That's what I'm saying.
Yep, it's perfect. I think
it
that's
will come with like a coupon where you can get $2 off the batteries.
Yes, exactly. So I think we found it, guys. That's our monkey's paw. We can have the super perfect switch, one switch to rule them all. It'll be all powerful, and it will run, but it runs only wirelessly. Or you know what? We'll say they managed to figure out how to make it run like at like 3 to 5 hours, or like 5 hours minimum, say, or something like that. I don't know, 3 to 5 hours, whatever. And it takes 12 9 volts to work, 8 or 12 or whatever.
What about like
It has to be at least 8 9-volt batteries. They're non-rechargeable. You'll never be able to plug it into the wall. Nintendo just won't let third party do it. It'll only be, for whatever reason, it only works with 9 volts. That's our monkey's paw.
What about like the D batteries or something?
Yeah,
Those are
I was
even
gonna
bigger.
say-
I just heard the finger close. We found it.
That is true. It is. It has more power juice in it. Is that 9 volts? Just more powerful. 9 volts.
Also, how expensive are they?
They're not cheap.
And if you have to constantly replace them, then it's gonna pile up. So that's just more powerful.
Please understand.
Yes. Yes. Oh, understand, please. Energy density of 9 volt versus AA. Nope.
And the advertisement has like Iwata coming out of like grave with like holding the.
This is terrible. That's like using dead celebrities in. No, while you're looking at the batteries, like I think I have an idea for what I would have as a monkey's paw.
Okay. Go on.
Not quite as ridiculous as Mike's, but I like the idea of having the whole back catalog available on PlayStation. But for me, the monkey's paw would be that you can only play the games as part of a subscription. So it's not quite as drastic, but I would not want to have a subscription, but I would if it meant that I could play, a lot of the old PS2, PS3, all those games that I would want to play, I would probably accept a subscription. Even if it were fairly high priced, I don't know, $30 a month. As long as do I have to subscribe for it at a year at a time? Maybe.
I think it
I
could
don't
be
know.
perpetual. I don't see why there's no reason you can you have to manually re-up all the time.
No, I'm saying, can I subscribe it a month and turn it off the next month?
Well,
Well,
then
how
you'd
far
not
do-
be able to play the games. You
Yeah,
have to be subscribed to play.
Yeah, I think that would be a monkey's paw for me. Is I would if the only way to play the backwards compatible library on on a Nintendo or a Sony system, or even if it were Xbox, every prior Xbox game would be to subscribe, then I think that would be something I could deal with as a monkey's paw.
So that would only be for like old games, you're saying? Or
Yeah, like the historical catalog for PlayStation, not new games. I guess it would be like how PS Now is now, but it has everything back. Maybe if PS Now were $30 or $40 a month, but it had everything back from PS3 and PS2 and PS1.
Saying they do have rechargeable now.
Do they?
Apparently, according to Wikipedia,
Oh,
it'd still be expensive.
it would be expensive.
That's
No,
why I'm saying like a new battery that doesn't exist, that like they don't
Nope,
have.
Nope, it has to be something that exists because we need to be able to accurately
You know what
tell.
would be cool is if we could do like a reenactment of this and like do some like crazy voice for like the genie and like have us like.
You want to
say
edit that,
our
Mike? You
wishes.
can go ahead and edit that and we'll film
I'll
it.
make a video. It'll be fun. But I don't know how to do like we need somebody else to be the genie or something, or I don't
Let's
know.
not, we're not going to set expectations. Okay, I can't seem to get a complete answer right now. We've been going for a while here, but we're going to say 9 volts for now and figure it out. So, but yes, that was the monkey's paws. It can't be plugged in ever. You have to run it off of at least like 8-9 volt batteries. And for whatever reason they can't be rechargeable. We'll say that.
How long does it last?
Let's see.
5 hours.
Let's say minimum 5 hours. It runs longer if they're like 2D games and stuff like that don't have high draw. So we'll say that. Free, but it requires like 8-9 volts at a time minimum. At a minimum of 5 hours, but like it's like 5 to 8 hours. We'll say like Switch Lite levels of like battery life. But you have to keep replacing the 9 volts. So that's the monkey spot.
It's because Reggie is working with Duracell now.
That was
They
good.
made a deal.
This episode went exactly as I hoped. That was incredible. Yeah, guys. So great times. I think we had some great ideas there, and I think it just shows that the fact that we have to wish for some of this stuff that like still a long way to go in the industry. But that was a lot of fun there, and hopefully gonna talk about some. We'll see you next year when maybe we'll do it. We're not gonna say like we hope to. I hope to do it annually, but if next year we do this, hopefully we'll have some new wishes. We'll have to re-listen to the episode and figure out what we wish for. And hopefully there's some things we can scratch off the list, and we can eventually just wish for other dumb stuff instead of stuff that would be really, really good for our lives. All right, guys.
Yeah, for sure. That was fun.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all our listeners for being with us today. Be well and safe until the next time. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.